Yeah, I have a good sense of that. Today we start sort of our individual meetings after this particular meeting, and so I'll sit down with the guys and I'll start to let them know where they stand in terms of the future of the club. They'll understand what they need to improve upon and what the plan is for them in this offseason. For the guys especially that are coming back. Everybody has room to grow. I approached my career as a player that the offseason isn't a time to take a break. The offseason is a time to get ahead of the guy next to you. And that's the way we're going to approach this offseason. I had that conversation with the guys in the locker room yesterday. This is not, I respect that guys need to recover. That's an important part of the offseason, but for me, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. You're never staying the same. And so this offseason is a chance for guys who especially have played a lot of games to recover a little bit, but need to take steps forward. Sometimes those steps forward aren't necessarily on the field. Maybe it's learning how to be better leaders in the locker room. It's better learning how to set this culture that we want to set. It's different things that we have planned for guys in the offseason. Some of these things are on the field that guys just need to get better at on the field in terms of their execution. But there's a plan for everybody that's in place, and our objective is that we are going to get better in the off season. We're not going to stay the same. We're going to start pushing everybody forward.
I've spoken a lot about the back line, I've spoken a lot about the midfield forwards, but are you happy with the annual metric output of your wide players, your wingers, in terms of crosses completed, goals scored? It seems like that's an area that hasn't been utilized as well as it could be. Is that a fair assessment?
Fair assessment, and no, I'm not pleased. I'm not content with where we're at with that. I've stated that to them. That's not a secret. And it doesn't mean that it's just an outright change of players. For some of them, I think they approach certain situations technically wrong. They, for example, if I was a golfer, they're choosing the wrong club for the wrong shot, for example. That is a technical thing that they need to improve on over the course of this offseason, especially how we cross the ball. Also, it's our thoughts of when we cross the ball. Too many of our guys on the outside, they get to the final pass, and they're trying to hit somebody in the head, and they're trying to hit somebody on the foot, and that's not – crossing the ball is about putting the ball in a dangerous spot and allowing guys to attack that space and where you put the ball. And too many of our guys are getting that approach, and they're thinking too much, and they're trying to hit the perfect cross. And really the perfect cross really comes from when you put the ball in the space and the attackers are attacking it. But I think it's twofold. I think our crossing and our final passes have to be better, but I also believe that our final runs have to be better. Sometimes when I go back and I see our games during the games and I watch the video of the games, we're not working hard enough in and around the box to create separation from defenders to make clear opportunities to finish, and we need to be better in that. So it's connecting it's all in all connecting the final pass. The final passer, the final guy who is going to finish, needs to be able to read the intentions of the final passer and vice versa. And we don't have a good enough connection right now between the two. We don't know where the crosses are going to go. We don't really know where the runners are going to go, and they're not looking at each other. And that's something that we can work off and build on, but it's going to take a little time. It's going to take some preseason work. And technically, everybody needs to get sharper. Our finishes need to be better. We had a number of chances in the final games that we didn't put away, but even more so, we had a number of attacks that we just didn't finish that we should have finished. And I'll go back even one step further, which is, and especially in the game against New England, there are a number of times where we as a team don't recognize decisive moments, meaning with one or two hard runs through the final third, breaking the final line, we don't recognize that with one more action forward, we could create that final chance. Instead, we pull out of it. We don't commit to making that run. We go back into playing possession, and we never create that chance again. So we don't recognize that we've just set ourselves up for a decisive moment. We don't take that moment. We then choose a different option. So there's a recognition factor there. Which is another step of our possession. For me, there is possession to progress the ball forward, and then we must destabilize and break down the back line and make them uncomfortable, and then we get into the finishing zone where our finishing has to take place, and that's the connection of the final pass and the finisher. And we don't do a good enough job at the destabilization point all the time, and we definitely haven't connected the finishing pieces. Yeah, we have a standard number of games that we'd like to get. At a minimum, we'd like to get 10 preseason games. That's the number we would like to hit. We've mapped out our preseason in terms of where we're going to be. Florida on a couple of occasions. We're going to start off here in Toronto and that first week in Toronto, candidly, is we're going to get our fitness base sorted out. We're going to get our touches and get our feet sorted out with the ball, and we're going to spend that week having a very, very clear classroom to field video. This is how we're going to play, and this is going to be the expectation of the group and of each individual based on the positions and what we're looking for. And once we get down to Florida, then we'll get to the real sort of breaking down of the game and really work on some things. But we're going to set a foundation as we come into, be immediately in terms of how we want to set our culture and how we want to work, and that's going to be very clear from day one because we have some plans for guys in the offseason to also help us in terms of how we want them and the team to ultimately drive the culture. If the culture is driven by the coaching staff, it's not good enough. It has to be owned by the players, and it has to be owned down in the locker room. And every time you bring a new player into the club, they have to fit into that culture that is in that locker room. We as the coaches, because we need to improve our culture, are going to be the forefront of helping to establish and set the culture, and that's going to be on myself, my staff. It's going to be on the medical staff. It's going to be on the kit men. It's going to be on everybody that's around this building that we will function in a certain way next year and at a higher standard. And the players won't have an escape. They won't be able to go somewhere else to find a different, softer culture. This is how we're going to work on a daily basis, and this is going to be our expectation. This is I'm not going to sit and explain what that is, but we're going to work differently. And then the players we need to find players that are willing to embrace it and drive it and own it. And like we said, when we bring in a player from the outside, they're going to adapt to what our culture is. They're not going to adapt the culture. And I think we've seen that too often.